foreign policy side. Some of it the director has spoken about, some of it the chief minister has referred to. I don't know what comes to your mind when you think of diplomacy. Maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it looks like a good life. Maybe it means travel, people in suits. I want to tell you, it's actually a mission. It's an obsession. It's a passion. If you really want to be good at it, you have to be driven. And what drives you is actually a sense of what you want to get from the world for your country. And today, if I were to say the way I describe, how India grows, how has our diplomacy grown? I would say perhaps more than ever before, our diplomacy is today focused on development. When we travel out, the Chief Minister referred to the Quad meeting we've had. When we go out there, we say, what is it we are going to get from this engagement, those conversations, these impressions, which we can take back to India, which will make our country a better, more advanced, a more modern society. Now, it's not unique, This is not rocket science. Actually, all countries, and the bulk of actually radical transformational development in the last 150 years has actually been in Asia, starting with Japan in the 1860s. Then you had the Soviet Union in the 1920s, 30s. You had ASEAN, you had actually Korea, Taiwan, you had ASEAN, you had then China. And we are the next in that, in a sense, in the queue of development. Countries develop fastest, best, most efficiently, most economically, when they actually have that goal that my foreign interactions must have an application at home. And that, in many ways, is what today our life is about. I remind you of the example the Chief Minister gave, working with Japan to build bridges across the Brahmaputra, working with Japan to improve the sewage and the water system of Guwahati. Now, I can give you countless examples from other countries. I was in Finland. They were talking to me about using bamboo in the Numaligarh refinery to actually diversify the nature of the fuel that it produces. You can see today in our infrastructure, big corridors like the Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor, the Freight Corridor, the bullet train project which is now underway. Or, in fact, I kind of rewind your own life. Look at even the origins of the IITs. The IITs were all created by international partnerships. Our I would say, I don't want to say error, but our shortcoming was that we did not keep up the pace. We did not scale up through the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, the way many other countries did. So we had the right ideas. We didn't apply it efficiently enough. We didn't scale it up fast enough. So you actually have a situation, it may come as a surprise to many of you, that when Rajiv Gandhi visited China in 1988, India's per capita income was about the same level as China, actually was a little bit higher. Today, China's per capita income is 5 times ours. And what's the difference? The difference was that they were much more radical about the reform, but they were much more effective and efficient in actually translating visions onto the ground. Or if I were to give you a different metaphor, they had more engineers. And they had more engineers in the decision-making level. So the point today where diplomacy is concerned, I want to make to you is we engage the world today very much with the idea that the world is a partner in technology, it is a partner in capital, it is a partner in best practices. We must have an open mind. When we see something we like, the greatest tribute you can do to a good idea is to go home and practice it yourself. And a lot of the change that especially Prime Minister Modi has brought about in the last 8 years, has actually been that kind of approach to the world. The second, of course, is every society needs to be secured. And in a way, actually, diplomacy is the first line of defense. If diplomacy is successful, you don't ever need a military to defend you. So, and sometimes if you reach a stage where the military response is required, there too, defense diplomacy is a supporting force for the military. So, again, when we think of securing the country, we think typically of an adversarial state. Now, I think all of you know what I have in mind there. But think again, think locally. Till a few years ago, this region actually used to have a serious concern about terrorism, about separatism, about narcotics, about trafficking. What has helped to deal with it? Actually, diplomacy. The fact that we made sure that they got no support in any neighboring country has actually made this region and your existence much more secure, much more peaceful, and much more prosperous. So, with the evolution of technology, our sense of what is security, both in terms of problems and challenges, also change. So, when we think security today, we think today data security, we think cyber security. We worry about the normal being weaponized in many ways against a society. So that too is a responsibility of diplomacy. But if we are successful in development and we are successful in securing our country, this is really a case where 1 + 2 makes 3. It is then that we are actually able to exert global influence. And I suggest to you that if you have seen India much more visible on the global stage, if you see today a projection of our culture, let us take the International Day of Yoga. If you see us taking initiatives like we have done on Solar Alliance or disaster resilience, if you see us actually responding to, an earthquake in Nepal or a cyclone in Mozambique or even today actually to an economic crisis in Sri Lanka, all of that is happening because we are building more capabilities. We have today instruments and influence that we did not have earlier. But again, my point is progress should actually increase our appetite. A society with a small stomach really doesn't have a future. Unless we have really an insatiable sense of what our prospects are, we will somewhere stop to grow, and this country, I cannot ever see that happening. And finally, a few words about the ordinary person. Because again, as I said, there is a caricature of diplomacy. The diplomacy is something up there. I want you to think diplomacy actually affects you every day. And I'll give you 2 or 3 examples of it. Many of you, I presume and I hope, have passports. Ask your parents, how hard was it to get a passport? How long did it take for them to get a passport? And now see how, passport is like a step beyond your Aadhaar card. It's not just our ability today to use digital instruments and a different governance mindset to do what, to my mind, again, is a very basic facility. I believe that passport is not a privilege. Passport is an entitlement. To me, anybody who wants a passport should have the ability to get the passport. But the fact that we can make it happen today actually says something about what tools of technology can do, because it is actually on a digital backbone that we are able today to take a process which would take, I think, reasonably between 6 months to maybe a year to get a passport. Today, if somebody doesn't get a passport in a week, they say nasty things about us on Twitter. So the point I'm making is, look at what a difference we've made to the life of an ordinary person. But I give you another example, an example close to your heart. We have 1 million students plus studying abroad. We have actually NRI, we have 7 million workers in the Gulf. If you look at non-resident Indians and persons of Indian origin, there are 30 million of them. They can today actually go out in the world with a sense of confidence that the country will look after them. And we've shown that. We showed that recently in Ukraine, and we've shown it actually time and time again. We showed that during the COVID pandemic, that actually the Vande Bharat mission, which brought back 7 million people, is the largest recorded evacuation in human history. Now, here too, some of it is capability. A lot of it is also leadership. It is about willpower. So, my message to you today is, look, we are, this country, this society, your generation, you are at the cusp of actually a very big change. I saw for myself, and I heard the director speak about, in fact, the Chief Minister also, about the contributions which were made by your own IIT during COVID. But think about something which today we all see as so normal. The fact that everybody in this room, I hope, is vaccinated. It's so natural, and yet it is so remarkable. Because let me tell you, there are large parts of the world where this did not happen and still hasn't happened. And not just vaccinated. Often, we were at the end of the queue for anything new that happened. The idea that we could actually have an invented in India vaccine, that we could actually have multiple Make in India vaccines. And even on Make in India, I would say, the same vaccine was actually made at multiple places. In terms of scale and, I would say, efficiency, the Indian producer was actually way ahead of his peer group in the rest of the world. So I cite that to you. The amazing thing about the world is remarkable things are happening around us every day. Okay, we should not ignore that they are remarkable. We should not marvel that they are remarkable, because then we kind of say, okay, that's exception, we can't ever do it again. We have to be aware of it, we have to internalize it, we have to create that new normal, and then we have to proceed to take our country, our society, the coming generations to the next stage. When I look at all of you, I see the medium which will make it happen. Once again, I want to say it's today, for me, really a great source of energy, of even inspiration, that I have an opportunity to come and talk to you, and I'd be very happy to respond to any thoughts that you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for motivating and enlightening us with your words. We are now